வணக்கம். இது ஸ்டோரிஸ் வித் செல்வி. உங்களுடன் தாமரை செல்வி.
வணக்கம். இன்னைக்கு நம்ம கேட்க போறது சஸ்பென்ஸ் நிறைஞ்ச ஒரு இங்கிலீஷ் த்ரில்லர், Havoc Says Hi. வாங்க கதைக்குள்ள போகலாம்.
Chapter 27. The Past. Cold breeze and not so tall buildings around. I could see the mountains standing tall instead of the skyscrapers and star hotels which hide the real beauty of the nature from our eyes now. I was lying on the wall in my terrace, observing that beautiful scenery from the eyes of a 11-year-old, whose eyes always had a question to ask. I could fall down, that was what my mom used to say, but I won't. I never have and never would. My house was big enough for my nuclear family, but it was not massive enough to call it a bungalow. For me, it was my castle, where I had own kingdom. Childhood had its own benefits. I didn't have to think too much about good or bad. It was a carefree life, quiet and calm. You could never expect a horn sound in my neighborhood. It was perfect for me. My belief was falsified by a loud horn in my street. I was surprised by this immediate disturbance in my neighborhood. I leaned forward from the slab I was lying. An old white Benz passed by my house and stopped 3 houses far from mine. It stopped right in front of the house which we, myself and my school friends called a booth bungalow. I heard it was after the suicide of the lady who lived there 20 years ago. It became haunted. We used to talk of the stories of the people who died in that house in improbable ways after that. I didn't know whether there was truth to the story, but I liked the feeling of being scared of something supernatural. They should be visiting someone near that house, I assumed. My locality was not quite popular with the rich. My neighbors were from middle-class background as well as the people struggling to overcome the poverty line. A car was a rare sight for us, so I expected that car to move off soon. The driver got out of the car and opened the door for the passengers. An old guy, who was in his 50s, and a fair boy with medium hair and a thin body who might be my age, got out of the car and entered the haunted house, as I used to call. The old man didn't stand to admire the surroundings or at least give it a look. He walked right into the house and the boy followed him. The stiffness in the way the old man moved made me doubt whether he was really an old man. Before entering inside the house, the boy looked at me and smiled. It was as if he had seen me before. I had never seen him before in my life, but his smile had a pull. Before my mind could process, I was reciprocating his smile with mine. There was something about his eyes which I felt native. I jumped back on the ground and ran inside the house to inquire about the new neighbors to the one person who knew everything. My mom was cooking. She really hated me when I disturbed her while doing household chores. But my question to her was, when was she ever free? And I also liked to disturb her a lot. That was my way of telling her that I cared. And I always wanted her affection. She always knew it, but she would always scold as she ever did. "Ma, who are they? Some people have moved into that booth bungalow," I asked abruptly, assuming that my mom would know the answer for my question. "Shut up! How many times should I tell you not to call it like that?" She scolded me for calling it a booth bungalow, but she was scared to even walk near that house. I ignored her scolding and started pestering her. "Okay, ma, tell me, who are they?" I pleaded to my mom out of sheer curiosity. She shied and gave me a raised eyebrow look. "Someone has purchased that house. A grandpa and his grandson have moved in. That small boy had lost his parents, so he is staying with his grandfather." She answered with concern towards that boy and turned back to her work. I was standing there waiting for more information. She said without turning, "Go, do homework. First get good marks and then ask about others. It seems like that boy is a class topper in his previous school. But what about your marks? At least get pass mark in half yearly." She brought my marks into the conversation and shut my mouth. She was right. I struggled to even pass in all the subjects. I silently walked back to my room. I began to feel jealous of that boy. Next day at school, the expected had happened. The new boy who also became of my neighbor had joined my school and he was in my class. My school was the most reputed Christian mission institution in our small town, so it was predictable for a rich boy like him to join in it. His name was Eshwar and he had just moved from Chennai as his parents died in an accident. Though I had a bit of jealousy running inside me, I felt pity for him. He sat at the back seat of my class, which made our teacher frown, but brought laughs in the students' face. I looked back at him and he looked directly at me and gave me the same smile. I smiled as I couldn't stop myself from doing that. He was silent and he never spoke unnecessarily. He studied well and got good marks in all the subjects. He was a pet for all the staff, but he never showed any sign of ego or bragging of any sort. This was a complete opposite of me. I was the most talkative person in the whole class. Most of the staff knew me as the boy who couldn't stop talking, but in reality, my mind was filled with millions of thoughts. Talking is the way by which I maintained my coolness. I was the fastest to finish the homework only if I felt the need. But there was a rare event. I heard him speak only when he answered the teacher's question during the classes. Apart from that, he never opened his mouth for anything. A week passed. I had not spoken a word to him, but our smiles just got exchanged whenever we saw each other. I began to doubt whether he was really smiling or it's his normal face structure. But no, he was smiling only at me. He distanced himself from the rest of the students. I didn't know the reason for that.
இந்த பதிவு உங்களுக்கு பிடிச்சிருந்ததுன்னா மறக்காம லைக் பண்ணுங்க, ஷேர் பண்ணுங்க, சப்ஸ்கிரைப் பண்ணுங்க. என்னோட பதிவுகளை உடனுக்குடனே தெரிஞ்சுக்கிறதுக்காக பெல் பட்டனையும் கிளிக் பண்ணுங்க. மீண்டும் அடுத்த அத்தியாயத்தில் சந்திப்போம். நன்றி, வணக்கம்.